Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to your Monday Morning Jumpstart. We are rejoined by guest Russ Henneberry. Hey, Russ.
How's it going?
Jumping. Everything is good.
Let's jump.
Okay, so we touched on a lot of topics last week. I really want to get into networking. So again, let's take everybody back. I know a bit of your story in the beginning. How did you network in the beginning when you didn't know anybody, I guess, in the world of what you were doing? How did you build that network that you now have that's so strong that you lean on?
Well, so I started, I think first of all, it's helpful to know what you want, right? When you go out networking, there's so many.
So a network with a purpose, right?
Yeah, because, when we go out networking, the biggest reason that it can be nerve-wracking is that you feel like an imposter a little bit. The way I got started was I started networking locally here in St. Louis. There's plenty of clubs and meeting groups and lunch groups and networking events and different things that are going on. I live in St. Louis. It's a fairly large city, so there's a lot of things going on locally. So I would just go out and run around town, and sometimes I would be gone all day, like just go to a breakfast, then go to a thing. I was just trying to meet people and make the right connections, if you know what I mean.
So when you say that you were meeting people, going to these clubs, making these connections, were they also in like the marketing content world, or what world were they a part of that you were connecting with them?
Yeah, so some of them were. I would say the events that I would choose to go to were about half people that were doing the similar things as I was, and then another half of them was just business owners, like people that were out there doing business, because a lot of these things happen during the day when people are at their 9-to-5 jobs and, doing whatever they do, turning a screw somewhere. And, so the rest of us can go out and, anybody that's at these events is typically like a business owner. And, you run into all different types of business people. And they're both valuable, I think, to go to both types of events is valuable for different reasons. The biggest connections that I made when I went to places that did similar things to me was that a lot of times I would run into people that did things that were with the customer I wanted, but they didn't do exactly what I did. So if I was entering into a meeting as a search engine marketer or a content marketer or a copywriter, I might run into somebody who does web design, and that person might be like, wow, like I really need to talk to you because like I build websites, but I don't write the copy or the content and do the SEO stuff. Really solid partnership. So I found a lot of partners at those kind of meetings. I found customers at the other ones. So I might find a new client, somebody that says, I just want to hire you directly. Whereas when I was working, like I would go to, for example, there was a meeting of just people that were interested in WordPress, which is a software that we use to build websites. And so I would go to the WordPress meeting every week, and we would just bunch of geeks in there talking about WordPress. And I met a lot of good partnerships there because these people are doing something with the customers I want, and they already have them. And then they can just add my service in, right, as a value add. So yeah, that was my strategy, and still is. I still look to partner with people that already have my customers. And then I also look to add clients that are just business owners or whatever.
And what was your like intentional purpose when you went in marketing? Like you say, you can't just like willy-nilly market. Network, sorry, not market. What was your intention when you went into these events to network?
I mean, meet people, I was never like going in there and saying, and then keeping score. Like I'd come back out to my car and say, how many clients did I get? Is a wrong sort of measurement. Mm-hmm. But how many people did I, get to know today? And the real power to networking for me, though, came when I just created my own event. So I went from attending other people's events, which I kept doing, but I decided that one of the best things I could do would be to build an event that where I invited people to. And that took maybe a year or two of networking in other people's events, seeing what I liked, see what I didn't like, seeing how they were getting the word out about it, that kind of thing. And then I made my own event. And that was a good move for me early on.
I like that because I feel like some people feel like I live in a small town, there's no ways I can do this. But I think obviously there's been a lot of developments since you started this. Obviously, we have LinkedIn now, which you didn't have, which obviously immediately connects people of like similar like things. And then you also have the virtual part of it, right? So I feel like it's so much easier to find a group virtually that you can bring together. So what was your event that you would bring people together on? Because they weren't all there for the same thing, right? Or like for doing the same thing.
Well, you know the story because you laugh at it all the time.
I know, but I just laugh at the motel. I don't even remember the details.
Well, so I didn't have a lot of money to put into this, so I rented a conference room at, I'm not even going to use the name because it'd be mean to the hotel chain, but like it was like not the nicest hotel chain. Okay, so you plug in whatever hotel chain you're thinking of. And I would rent their conference room, and then I used a site called meetup.com to get people aware of it. And yeah, I would rent the projector. It was like an extra $20 or something. And then I would put a PowerPoint presentation on the screen. I would teach. That was just the style or format that I wanted to set up for my meeting. There's so many different ways to structure meetings. Your goal is to bring people together and get to know people. It is helpful if you feel good about it to present information and, because essentially you are appointing yourself as an expert, and the first time I did this, I had 3-4 people show up and I was like, I'm teaching it, don't care. By the time I finished with that meetup, it was always booked solid. Like I would have full room. It was just because I kept providing more and more value to these people. They started to all get to know each other. I got some regulars in there. And you can imagine the power of that. They keep seeing me showing up each month. I did it once a month. And after a while, I started to get people that would stay after and say, like, what do you do? What can you help me with? How can I hire you? So really powerful. And you're absolutely right. You can do this now online so easily. Like even back then, so it was like 05, 06, it wasn't super easy to get an online community together. You can do the same thing online, but you can also, if you don't feel like, wow, that doesn't sound like the format I would want, you could create something that's like, even if it's a hiking club or you're trying to bring people together and get to know them. That's the whole point, because the more people in your network that care about you and that you care about, you guys are going to support each other. And one of the things you want support with is to grow your business. So even doing something that has nothing to do with business, attending church, going, any place that there's other people that you can get to know. But I think it does microwave the results to present and teach something. If you feel comfortable with it, it's super powerful.
Well, and it's like a safe space to position yourself as that expert, right? It's like in front of 4 people, I'm sure was way less scary than the first time you got on stage in front of 500 people,
True. Although it was more, the problem with that one was I felt embarrassed, like no one came. So, but again, got to do it. Get up there, do the presentation, deliver value, keep going.
Well, and let's backtrack for 1 second, because obviously we know the world is opening up and we're having networking events, I should say, not necessarily events where you can network coming up. A lot of people feel nervous just about, showing up at these events. There's a lot of imposter syndrome where they feel like everyone's going to be better than I am. Who am I to go to a writers conference? Who am I to show up at these places? Any advice for people that are really nervous about attending networking events?
Yeah, I mean, like the first one I went to, I ran straight past everybody when I walked in there and went into the bathroom because I was like, I'm freaked out. Like, what am I even doing here? Like, I feel like an imposter. I have no clients, and like all these people are here, and so I went and hid in the bathroom for a while. And I can tell you what you can do to avoid that feeling of anxiety when you enter a networking event is just to have a very simple, what we call elevator pitch. I call it an identity statement, like who am I as I walk into this room? And sometimes that can be different from what you actually do from 9 to 5. So you might be a nurse 9 to 5. You're trying to get a copywriting business going. So you're going to want to put that copywriter's identity statement on, that you're going in there to say, I am this. And so the quick formula that you can sort of fill in the blank on is to have a statement ready as you walk in to a networking event. Because the one question that everybody asks, which is actually kind of a boring question, and I can also talk about some other questions that I use at networking events. But the one question everybody asks is, so what do you do?
What do you do?
Right. So what do you do?
Yeah.
And you can feel like a deer in headlights if you don't have the answer to that question. So a real easy way to do this is to fill in the blanks in the following sentence. So I am a blank, right? So that does blank for blank, right? So I am a freelance copywriter that creates white papers and blog posts for businesses in the financial industry or in the real estate business. If you have a niche, if you don't, you just like, that's the end of it. I'm a freelance copywriter that creates white papers and blog posts for companies. But if you have a niche, add that in. And then you can also, for a bonus, would be to add the results you get.
Benefits, yes.
So
I
you
think
can
that's
say,
important.
it is important to be able to tie that back to why anybody should care, right?
Exactly.
So the reason I care is because these blog posts and white papers help generate leads and get website traffic for these companies. If you have that, right? If you have that statement, I can tell you're going to feel so much more confident. You can even practice it a couple times. I got to tell you, like, you back up to those days, you would see me in my car practicing my little statement, right? As I walked in, because I wanted to make sure I felt comfortable as I walk into a networking event, that I know who I am and what I want, right? Because they do want to help you. They just don't. They can't if you don't know what you do and how to articulate that.
So I think the build up from last week was like, if you're looking to make the transition to a freelancer, you want to be able to have a group of people that you can tell what you do and, how you can help, and to be able to spread that message. And now today's lesson is, you don't always have to have that in place. You can build that network, right? And it doesn't always need to be like-minded doing the same thing. It's just you bringing together and hanging out with a group of people and getting to know people at that event. And I think if it can be as simple as that, that takes away like a lot of pressure, right? And a lot of like feeling of angst that people can have around even the word networking. When I hear that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to be like the CEO of my business in order to show up somewhere and contribute or have a conversation at all. But I think that if we can do what you're saying, it's just creating connections with a group of people and going and supporting each other. I think that's an important part of it.
I like networking events that happen on a regular interval for when you're getting started. Even though like something like AWAI's boot camp will happen over several days, and it's very powerful to have that singular event. But when you're looking to network locally, look for events that happen every week or every month, and don't stop going for, if it's every week, go for 3 months straight. And you might go to it once or twice and say, this is not for me, and you stop going. But once you commit and you say, this is a good group of people for me, keep going to that event. All right. It takes repetition. That's how trust is built. That's how, you remember, we do business with people we know, business with people we like, business with people we trust. How do we build know, like, and trust? repetition. Keep showing up, keep being the same person, maybe even get involved, right? Work on something for that group. So things like the Rotary Club, right? They're not a business group necessarily. They're out there trying to do social good. And you just keep showing up to Rotary Club meetings and you get involved and you start doing things. And the next thing you know, like you find out that the person you've been working right alongside for a charity event or something is your next client or your next partner, right? And that's
or the Rotary Club itself. Who knows?
yeah.
I like that a lot. Okay, so I'll go back and listen again because I think there's a lot of tips within this one. It's not one giant tip, but just overall arching message of networking, get out there, connect. And then next week, we will talk about the 3 things that you think that are essential for growth, which everybody always wants and needs. So we shall see everybody then. Thank you.